Greetings, you are with your lead steward again. We are covering melodic dictation easy. This is a back to basics approach and is support material for VCE music performance subjects. In the study of melodic dictation, we begin by understanding scales, the shape of scales and the function of scales. A scale is a set of musical notes ordered according to pitch. They will follow a pattern of intervals that contributes to unique properties in that scale. Here is the C major scale, visually represented. You will notice that this scale starts and ends on a C. When we cover the span of 8 notes in this way, we call this span or distance an octave. We can just play the lower C and the higher C at the same time and call that an octave too. Pianists will often use octaves in the left-hand bass clef to enrich the sound and texture of what they are playing. Below is a small melody based on the first 3 notes of the C major scale on the previous slide. If we click on the audio icon below, we can listen to it, compare it to the scale on the previous slide, and then listen to the audio again. You will hear 4 counts in beats on a woodblock first. The short melody will start after this. You will see that in order for us to write down what we hear, we need to do this clearly and legibly, and that involves being able to write the notes as clearly and professionally as they appear here. You will need to develop the ability to manually write legibly on a manuscript. If you are presenting for examinations and the examiner cannot read what you have written, you will be marked incorrect. You may think it strange to analyse such a short piece of melody on the previous slide. However, for the sake of dealing with beginners to this field, I have provided an analysis here. The melody on the previous slide began and ended on a C. The first C, the one with the small ledger line through its centre, is called middle C. The upper C sits in a space, whereas middle C sits or sat on a line. You will notice this pattern everywhere. The lower octave note will sit either on a line or in a space, and the same note an octave up will sit in or on the opposite. So if a note sits on a line in its lower octave, the next upper version of itself will sit in a space and vice versa. See if you can start to recognise this pattern more, for music is built on pattern. The melody also used notes in a stepwise movement and took those notes from the scale of C major as seen 2 slides ago. As you start to listen more closely to melodies that you listen to in your own time, you will notice that many melodies do in fact use stepwise motion. In other words, they are built on moving from one note to the next, whether in an upwards or downwards direction. This is because melodies are often written for singers, and singers find it best and easiest to sing melodies made up of many short steps. When we need to write down a melody we hear, as professional arrangers may need to do, we say that we are either transcribing the melody or doing melodic dictation. A dictated melody is usually one that is given to you. A transcribed melody is usually one that you have written down after listening to it. Now you are going to transcribe your first small melody, but in order to do this you will need the following things: manuscript paper, pencil, eraser, earphones, or some sort of listening device. You will now set up the first line of manuscript in the following way. You need to add in a treble clef, a time signature, and middle C as a crotchet. The treble clef is written on the manuscript first and generally represents high notes, whereas its counterpart, the bass clef, generally represents low notes. We will only be dealing with the treble clef for now until we start to build diversity and confidence with this skill. You will then write in what is called a time signature. The one you will need for these exercises is a simple quadruple time signature, which is 1 4 on top of another 4, and it means that every bar will add up to 4 beats, 4 crotchet beats. You will also add in a middle C, exactly the same as the one written here, and leave enough space for writing in 3 more crotchets in the first bar and 4 in the second bar. For now, every beat you will hear will be played as a crotchet, like the middle C here on this stave, as in the note with a coloured in head and stem. Every beat of the following melodies will be played as crotchets, and you will need to focus on writing neatly and legibly. Being able to write neatly and legibly on a stave is a skill in and of its own right. We are going to click on the audio symbol below to listen to the melody and attempt our first transcription. Please take your time and focus on writing notes legibly. The answer to this question will appear on the next slide, so you will need to pause this slide before moving on to the next one. Do not move on to the next slide, please, until you have given this melody your best shot. You may replay this audio track as many times as you need it. In fact, you are encouraged to do so. Please remember to focus on writing your answers manually on manuscript paper, neatly and legibly. Study the answer to the previous slide as it is here below and note the following things. Number 1, each crotchet note is evenly spaced out in each of the 2 bars. Number 2, the excerpt always ends with a double bar line, whether a 2-bar excerpt or 4-bar excerpt or more. The double bar line at the end shows us that we are at the end of the piece. When you write in the double bar line, you are showing you understand how musical theory works, especially under examination situations such as the VCE music repertoire courses and others like it. Number 3, in case you are unclear and have come to this presentation with little to no prior musical knowledge, the bar lines are the small lines that divide notes into small sections. The space between the bar lines is called the bar. In these beginning excerpts, we say that there are only 2 bars. Number 4, compare your answer with the one here and mark yourself out of 7. 1 mark for each crotchet note you had to fill in. You can invent your own marking systems if you like. Perhaps aim to mark them out of 7 or 8 or even 10 if you wish to. Aim to improve on the layout each time you undertake a new melody. The stems of the crotchets should aim to reach up at least 1 octave's distance above the given note. Stems up on the right hand side and down on the left hand side. We are now up to the second easy melodic dictation. Don't forget that there is a 4-beat woodblock count in. You may replay this as many times as you need to, and in fact, again, at this early stage of melodic dictation or transcription, I strongly recommend that you do this. This is because you need to develop an ear that can closely follow the contour, which is the shape of the melody with its rises and falls. The more careful you're listening at this stage, the more solid you will become with more complex melodies over time. Study the melodic answer to the previous slide below. Notice how the final 2 notes are no longer stepwise in motion. We have moved in a downward direction from E to C, which means we have descended by an interval of a third. We skip 1 note. When we move from E to C, we skip the D in the middle. We call small leaps like this that use thirds skips because they skip 1 note in between 2 other notes. Melodic jumps of fourths and higher are called leaps. Study the answer carefully and compare it to what you wrote down for the previous slide. Before we commence the next melodic dictation, here is a flash reminder. Contour has to do with the shape of the melody, including its rises and falls. Climax is usually the peak of the melody, the point in the melody that the melody aims for. A climax usually appears about 3/4 of the way through a melody, but not always. You will note that this melody now uses the first 5 notes of the C major scale. The first note C or degree, the fourth note or the degree F, and the fifth note or degree G are very important in any scale, whether major or minor. Harmony, which relates in general to chords, centres around the chords built on the first, fourth and fifth degrees a lot in many works, especially in modern pop songs. Implied or inferred harmony is something we can look into a little later, but essentially many Western melodies infer or imply certain harmonies. It may be a good idea to start to think about this. In melodies, we sometimes use skips and leaps, which are different to steps in melody writing. Stepwise motion means moving from one note to the very next, whether up or down, but a skip is a small leap of a third, for example, C to E, D to F, E to G, and so on. And a leap is anything larger than a third, such as leaps of fourths, fifths, sixths, sevenths, and beyond. For example, C to F, C to G, C to A, C to B, and so on. Conjunct means stepwise motion. Conjunct equals stepwise. Disjunct means melodies that use more skips and leaps. You can see that this melody is also a stepwise melody. It ends on the fifth degree of the C major scale. The term fifth degree is another way of saying the fifth note of the scale. If you listen to this melody several times, as you may have done while transcribing it, it does not sound complete or finished. This is because it ends on that fifth degree or note of the C major scale. When dealing with single line melodies, a melody will tend to sound more complete or finished or total when it ends on the tonic note, which is the starting note of the scale, and in this case it would be C, or the root note or the bass note of the scale. Remember, conjunct means stepwise motion, conjunct equals stepwise, disjunct means melodies that generally use more skips and leaps. Listen carefully to this melody, it has a new feature in it. Did you pick it? Did you work out what the new feature was? If you did, well done. The second bar outlines a chord. The chord that is outlined is the chord of C major. So far we have been using crotchets to both dictate and transcribe our melodies with. We are now going to add in quavers for rhythmic interest, and we'll keep to crotchets and quavers for a long while now. If you study this example below, you will see that quavers can be grouped in twos and also fours. In the second bar, you can still write the first 4 quavers grouped in twos, and that will also be correct. I've just put these 2 different samples in so you can see, comparatively speaking, what the differences are. Have a listen. You will notice now that for each beat or for each woodblock sound you have heard and infer while you listen to the melody, you now will hear 2 notes being sounded as the quavers. So 2 quavers will sound in the space or time of 1 crotchet beat. We follow certain protocol when writing quavers. If most of the note heads sit below the middle line of the stave, whether treble, bass, alto or tenor clefs, we will usually place the stems facing up on the right hand side of the note head. If most of the note heads sit above the middle line of the stave, we will usually place the stems facing down on the left hand side of the note head. If the note heads are evenly allocated on either side of the middle line, you may choose which direction to place the stems. Study the example below carefully. When notating quavers, it can be super helpful to notate your rhythm over the top of the score first before adding in the notes. When we write notes like this, see below, with the note heads or without them, we usually call this rhythm or slash notation. It serves as a guide to filling in the melody. So when we do melodic dictation, we are doing rhythmic dictation or rhythmic transcription as well as melodic dictation / transcription. Some people prefer to mark in with slash notation the rhythm first, and then that makes it much easier for them to mark in the notes and the pitches of their melodies. Here is your easy melodic dictation number 6. Take time to study the answer to easy melodic dictation number 6. Mark it off your answer very carefully. Here is your easy melodic dictation number 7. This one does include skips. Take your time studying the answer to easy melodic dictation number 7. Easy melodic dictation number 8 will now use the full range of the C major scale. Note how the full range of the C major scale is being used in this melody. Note how the quavers have been written in the second bar. The majority of the notes sat on or underneath the middle line of the stave, so the stems had to go up on the right-hand side. Is this a conjunct or disjunct melody? What do you think? Here is easy melodic dictation number 9. Note how this melody is chordal in structure. See the first bar in particular. The second bar of the melody is scalic. That is, it uses the stepwise motion of the C major scale. For easy melodic dictation number 10, ask yourself, does this melody sound final? If not, ask yourself why. Did you work out why this melody did not sound final? This melody actually uses a compositional technique known as a sequence. A sequence occurs when the composer simply repeats a small melodic fragment up or down one or more steps. So what you see in the second bar is exactly the same as the first bar, it's just up one tone or one step. Take a few moments, please, to review new terminology. Thank you for watching this video. I do hope that it has been of some help to you. Please click like and subscribe. More videos like this are on their way. Thank you.